Today we'll be looking at which race to pick when playing Baldur's Gate 3. When you start up the character creation screen, you're met with um, 7 of these choices down here of characters that have already been created, or you can choose to do your own origin custom character. The 7 down here, you can't change much about them at first. Later in the game, you can change their class and such. So if you want just a simple, I want to play, let's say, a rogue, I would maybe pick Astarion. If you want to play a fighter, you can just pick Lae'zel. Their stats are already created or set up, I should say. Um, so you can play as Gale. You'll see his different sets in Lae'zel, Shadowheart, Will, Karlach. There is the Dark Urge, he actually is kind of a custom character, as you can adjust his race um, and your class as well. But I would highly recommend not playing him your first go around. The only reason is because, without spoiling too much, this person has a dark past he cannot remember, and um, his story is him trying to do a lot of evil deeds. So there will be certain content that you'll miss out on because you'll have to complete certain deeds, certain evil deeds, kill certain people that you otherwise might not on a regular playthrough. But if you want to go for an evil playthrough first time around, I would recommend the Dark Urge. Otherwise, we'll just stick with doing an origin character. So when you click origin character, you can go now to your race, and there's 11 different races out there. Now, when you're creating your character itself, whether it's race and class, I would say that about 90 to 95% of the important aspect of picking or creating a character is your class. The other 5 to 10% is probably going to be your race itself. Really, for instance, if I pick as a barbarian, there's certain races that I could pick that gel well with it. Every single race is going to really, or your entire character is going to be based off your class itself, rather than your race. All 11 of these different races could be a barbarian, and totally gel with it. Um, so when you're picking your race, though, what you want to be thinking about are 2 things. One, what you look like cosmetically. This is the character that you're going to be with for the entire game. So, if you don't like, maybe you like some of the bonuses that a halfling gives, but you're not a fan of how the halfling looks. Well, maybe then you just don't play as a halfling if you're always going to be regretting walking around with a halfling character, per se. Or maybe you hate how, you want to be a big bruising type character, or something like that. And so then you might want to be the half orc because he kind of fits that theme, at least from a aesthetic standpoint. But if you really don't even care what your character looks like, the second part would be to pick a character that jives with your class or classes that you will pick ultimately. So with that being said, what first I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all 11 of the races, and then I'll give recommendations for each race with the class. So we'll start off with Elf. Elf gets, it has a base racial speed of 9 meters. This is standard for all races aside from the Halfling and Gnome. Um, they also get Elven weapon training, which gives them proficiency with longsword, short sword, short bow, and longbow. And this just means that when they use any one of those 4 weapon types, they get to add their proficiency bonus to their attack rolls. And proficiency is a +2 bonus to your dice rolls, from levels 1 to 4. I think it's then 5 to 8 is a +3, and then 9 to 12 is +4. The Baldur's Gate 3 wiki can correct me on that if need be, but yeah, you basically are going to either get +2, +3, or +4, and it will go up from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 as you level up your character. So this just basically means if you use one of these weapons, the longsword, short sword, short bow, or longbow, as they will get a proficient bonus. They will get an extra. They'll be more accurate with their weapons. On top of that, proficiency lets you use specific item skills. So every single item or every single weapon in the game lets you do a basic standard attack. But a lot of the weapons, and especially unique weapons, special magic weapons, will have some specific ability that you can use once per short rest or once per long rest. These can range from attacking multiple enemies in one turn to stunning an enemy to bleeding an enemy to um, yeah, lowering maybe the enemy's armor class. There's all kinds of different things that weapon skills can do. So if you're not proficient with a weapon and you try using it, you can still use its basic attack, but you won't get the proficiency bonus of +2, +3, or +4. So your accuracy will not be as accurate if you were to use instead a weapon you're proficient with. And on top of that, you will not be able to use the special skills that come with a unique weapon. So typically you're going to want to be using weapons that you are proficient with. So elves get proficiency with longsword, short bow, and longbow. On top of that, they get dark vision, which they can see up to 12 meters. Finally, they get Fey Ancestry. So this gives them advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put them to sleep. So if someone tries to charm them, they're going to roll the elf will be able to roll 2 dice and take the higher of the 2 to see if they defend against being charmed. And then, yeah, magic can't put them to sleep. So any sleep spells have absolutely no effect on elves. On top of this, the elves actually have some sub-races. So certain races here are going to have sub-races, some won't, but elves have a sub-race. So when I click the sub-race, I can either be a high elf or a wood elf. I'll start with wood elf real quick because they're the most easy to explain. And that is, they basically get fleet of foot. So their movement speed is increased by another 1.5 meters. So instead of 9 meters, they can have 10.5 meters on their of movement speed on their turn. The high elf, if you choose the high elf instead, they get a cantrip. And so you can click the high elf cantrip list. This cantrip will use your intelligence modifier. Your intelligence score as its modifier. So depending on what you pick here, and with your class, you might want to pick something, like if you're going to be an elf, maybe you want to be like an elf wizard who also uses his intelligence, and you can get an additional cantrip. But there are also certain cantrips that it doesn't even matter if your intelligence score is high or low. It's always going to succeed at what it does. So for instance, if we pick Friends, there's no difficulty class associated with it. So when you use Friends, you're going to get advantage on charisma checks against a non-hostile creature. So this basically means when you're in dialogue checks with someone you're friendly with, you get to roll 2 dice instead of 1 and take the higher of the 2. And so you're more likely to pass your dialogue checks. So in this case, as a high elf subrace, I could be something like a barbarian who doesn't really use intelligence and have something like Friends that doesn't really need to use my intelligence as a modifier, and such. There's other ones too, like Blade Ward, where there's no saving throw. It's a spell that you take half the damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks for 2 turns. So, high elf can be used. High elf, this extra cantrip can be used in multiple different ways. You could, like I said, if you were to pick a wizard, maybe you pick a cantrip that you're not using as a wizard, that you also might want access to. The next we have is Tiefling. Tiefling gets similar to the elf and other classes, 9 meters of movement speed. They also get dark vision, so they can see in the dark up to 12 meters. And they get Hellish Resistance, which is resistance to fire damage, taking only half damage from fire damage. They also get 3 different sub-races. So there is the Asmodeus Tiefling, the Mephistopheles Tiefling, and the Zerael Tiefling. Each of these 3 sub-races of Tieflings also get bonuses at level 3 and level 5. not just the level 1 that you're going to see here at the bottom of each of these things. And I'll go through each of the bonuses. You won't see them on this specific screen, level 3 and level 5, but I'll go over exactly what they do. So the Asmodeus Tiefling, they get the Produce Flame cantrip, which is a very average at best cantrip. It's okay. But yeah, there's definitely stronger cantrips out there. But at level 3, it's going to get a first level spell of Hellish Rebuke. And if I go out to Warlock for a second, the spell Hellish Rebuke is this spell here, which is you react to your next attacker with flames that deal 2 to 20 fire damage. So it's a reaction spell. So this Tiefling at level 3 would get this spell to use. And it's cast as if using a second level slot, so it does a little bit more damage than a level 1 slot, but it only works once a long rest. So it's a very rare thing that you'll be able to use, or a very limited thing, I should say. And then at level 5, it gets the Darkness spell, and the Darkness creates a field of darkness which blinds creatures that are in it. You can look up more about the Darkness spell online. This type of Tiefling, so at level 1, it's going to get the Mage Hand cantrip, which is a fun interacting cantrip where you can summon a Mage Hand and it can interact with different objects. It can throw items, it can throw bombs if you have them nearby, it can push people. It's a fun little cantrip, and this will stick around for 10 turns. At level 3, it gets Burning Hands. So Burning Hands, if I go back out here, maybe let me go to Wizard for a second. The Burning Hands is this spell. So Burning Hands, it's a cone of fire that you shoot from your hands, dealing 3 to 18 damage. So this one would get it at a like a second level spell slot, similar to Hellish Rebuke that the previous Tiefling race would get. So it does a little bit more damage than your level 1 Burning Hands. It's also one that you do once a long rest. And then finally, it gets Flame Blade at level 5. This is also it's a level 2 spell. You get it once a long rest, and it can conjure a flaming scimitar in your hands for 10 turns. And this scimitar deals 3 to 18 fire damage. So you'll equip yourself with a weapon that is a flaming scimitar. It's not bad, but I will say at level 5, this is something you don't really need. You probably won't be using and not have a lot of use for. Finally, the Zuriel Tiefling. The Zuriel Tiefling gets this cantrip that it can always use. So this cantrip allows them an advantage on intimidation and performance checks. This is very good, as if you are the party face, as you will gain, you'll be more able to pass intimidation and performance dialogue choices. On top of that, at level 3, they get a second level slot of Searing Smite. Searing Smite is a weapon attack that deals an extra 2d6 fire damage and sets your target on fire for an extra 1d6 every turn. It does cost an action and bonus action, and it recharges on long rest. And then at level 5, it gets a level 2 Branding Smite, another once a long rest thing, but it does an extra 2d6 radiant damage, and it stops creatures from turning invisible. Next, we have the Drow. The Drow gets also a racial speed of 9 meters. It gets Drow weapon training, so it has proficiency with a rapier, short sword, and hand crossbow. It gets superior dark vision. I believe this is one of the only main races. I think there's a 1 or 2 other sub races that we'll get into that can have superior dark vision. But yeah, they get superior dark vision, which allows them to see in the dark up to 24 meters. They also get Fey Ancestry, similar to the Elf, where they have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. The 2 sub-races don't do anything differently from a, getting something at level 3 or level 5 or something along those lines. But it does get, but there is a few extra race-specific dialogues that you'll get throughout the game. On top of that, each of these Drows also get the Dancing Lights cantrip for free, and at level 3, They get, once a long rest, a Fairy Fire spell that they can cast, and a Darkness spell at level 5 once a long rest. Human, finally we're at a race that actually does not have a sub-race, so this will go straight forward. They get 9 meters of movement speed. They have the Civil Militia race feature, so they have weapon proficiency with spears, pikes, halberds, glaives, and they also get armor proficiency with light armor and shields. They're one of the only races out there that gets proficiency with shields. Human versatility, it lets them grab an additional skill to be proficient in, and their carrying capacity is increased by a quarter. This additional skill is when we go out to our abilities, and we can click the change button here, you'll see that they get one additional skill right here. So you can click any one of these items that you don't have a backstory with, or something that you're selecting to be proficient in. So for instance, let's just say I wanted to put my point in athletics here. If I was to be a different race, and I go out there, you'll see that I don't get that option to select one, and my athletics goes back down to -1. So humans get an additional skill to choose from. Githyanki are your alien race. They have a lot of interesting features. So we'll start here at the base spiritual speed of 9 meters. They also have armor proficiency with light and medium armor, which is the highest proficiency you can get from a race. Medium armor is. They're also proficient with short sword, long sword, and great swords. They also get this action called Astral Knowledge, which gives them proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. The way this thing works is, if you were to, it's an action that you can use and it lasts till your long rest. I could click and do everything that is a, strength or dexterity or intelligence or wisdom or charisma, constitution skill, and I will get proficiency. This right now you can see if I make something proficient right now, I get that +2 bonus, and again that will go up to +3 and +4 as you level up. I can assign that to skills that are of a specific ability. This example would be charisma. You can see here, if his charisma was 12, I get a +1 to charisma checks. And you can see down here, my deceptions and intimidation, performance, and persuasion, they're all at +1, similar to my charisma. So if I wanted to use astral prodigy or astral knowledge, I could make all of these skills go up by an extra +2, deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion, if I chose charisma. So it's a nice little way to get some extra skill bonuses. And then at level 1, they get access to Mage Hand. At level 3, they get access to, let me find the right term for it. It's where you triple your jump. Enhanced Leap is what it's called. It's once per long rest. You can do Enhanced Leap. It triples your jump for 10 turns. And then at level 5, they get Misty Step once a long rest, which is, it basically teleports your character. For Dwarf, they get 7.5 movement for their base racial speed. So them, Halfling, and Gnome will have that same little bit less racial movement speed as other classes. They get Dwarven combat training, which makes them proficient with battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and war hammer. They also get dark vision, and they get advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance to poison damage. For sub-races, the Gold Dwarf gets your hit points up by 1 for every level. The Shield Dwarf gives you armor proficiency with light and medium armor, and the Dwagar, this is one of the other classes that gives you superior dark vision, and it gives you advantage on saving throws against illusions and against being charmed or paralyzed. I will also say for the Dwarves, the Dwagar does get, at level 3, the spell Enlarge. For free. It's once a long rest, your character will be enlarged for 10 turns. And then also they get at level 5, the invisibility spell. It's a recharge per battle, and doesn't use any spell slots. That's it. So that one is actually pretty powerful, as it does it. You can keep doing it multiple times each long rest. The half-elf is going to be basically a mix of human and elf or drow, depending on your sub-race. The key differences is you're going to get your civil militia, which is similar to being a human, where you get the same proficiencies in weapons and armor. You get your 9 meters of movement speed. You get dark vision, similar to an elf, and fey ancestry, similar to an elf. You can then go and pick your sub race, where you can be a high elf to get your cantrip, a wood elf to get your base movement speed up a little bit, or your drow to get dancing lights and the other two special spells that they get that a drow would get. So it's really a mix of human with drow or human with high elf or wood elf. Halfling, similar to dwarf and gnome, gets 7.5 movement speed per turn. They also get lucky. This is a very powerful feature where when you roll a 1 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you re-roll the die and you use a new roll. Rolling a run is horrible. It's a critical failure. It is an automatic miss no matter what your bonuses are. So being able to basically re-roll a 1 is fantastic. And then Brave, they have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. You also get to pick between the Lightfoot Halfling, where they get advantage on stealth checks, or the Strongheart Halfling, which gives you advantage on saving throws against poison and resistance to poison damage. The Gnome gets 7.5 movement speed per turn, while also getting advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. This is very, very strong. They also get to choose between 3 sub-races. The Rock Gnome gets regular dark vision, and also gets to add twice its proficiency bonus to history checks. So when you use your history skill, you can see here, it's using that extra +2 twice. So that's why it's at +7 compared to Arcana, which is only getting that proficiency bonus once. The Forest Gnome gets to speak with animals, while also getting regular dark vision. And then the Deep Gnome gets superior dark vision and has advantage on stealth checks. The Dragonborn gets a base racial movement speed of 9 meters, and it gets to pick one of the 10 different sub-races. Each of the sub-races act the same way. They're just different with their damage that they're going to do from their breath attack and their resistance that they will gain. So the first thing is that they'll get an acid, or the Black Dragonborn will get acid breath, which does 2 to 12 acid damage. And spits it in a cone. As well as that, it gets resistance to acid damage. Depending on which Dragonborn you click, you'll get that same breath attack, and it'll do, for blue, it does lightning damage, and they also get resistance to lightning. Brass does fire in the same ways. Some of them are similar, like blue and bronze, both do lightning, and such. So you can go through the 10 of them, but you'll either be doing acid, or you'll do fire, you can do poison, here's fire again, or you can do cold. Silver and white are cold. Half Orc, so they go to 9 meters movement speed. They have regular dark vision. They get this special ability called Relentless Endurance. When you hit 0 hit points, so when you would die, you get 1 hit point instead of becoming down. This is once a long rest. So it just stops you from being totally dead when you are supposed to die the first time around. And then they get Savage Attacks, which when you land a critical hit with a melee weapon, you deal an extra dice of weapon damage. So for instance, if you are holding a Great Axe, which usually does 1 to 12 damage with its dice, when you crit, you double that dice roll to 2 to 12. The Half Orc would get an additional dice of weapon damage, so it would actually do 3 12-sided dice of damage. So you could do 3 to 36 on a crit. So half-orcs are great for doing a lot of melee damage. So with that being said, I'll go through real quick the different classes that I think go well with each race. If you're going to be a high elf, I recommend doing something that can do something like a wizard, since it will use that high elf cantrip that goes with your intelligence modifier. But you could also go really any race, and then instead of using one of these damaging spells, I would add in like friends, so that you could be something like a barbarian or a fighter, and you don't have access to spells, but you can always get advantage in dialogue checks. If you go Wood Elf, this could go for any class. Extra movement speed works for every class. Tieflings do not get weapon proficiencies. So they are very good with typically with um, using a class that gets a lot of weapon proficiencies. So martial classes, like fighters, they get access to all weapons and are proficient with them. So tieflings make great fighters, barbarians, paladins, etc. Drows, they get the big thing for me with them is their superior dark vision and their type of weapon training here. They make really good rogues or rangers as someone who can shoot from far away. Warlocks would also be a very good one for them. Humans get the big thing for humans is that they get shields. Them and half elves are the only two classes that get proficiency with shields. So they do very well when picking a class that doesn't get access to shields. So a spellcaster, when you're not dual wielding, would be very good. So they could hold a staff in one hand and a shield in the other when they're not dual wielding two staffs. I think humans would make good wizards or sorcerers in general, or druids or clerics. Actually, I think druids and clerics get shield proficiency no more. Githyanki are exceptional at pretty much everything in general. So you could pick them for whatever you think is best. They really go well with everything. They're probably just the ugliest of the 11 races, but if you don't care about aesthetics, they're probably your best race. Dwarves, they make very good barbarians and fighters in general, and such. They are a little bit tankier, especially gold dwarves that get access to getting extra health. So they're a very good. They're a very good race for especially classes that give you extra movement speed, like barbarians. Half elf is just again a mix of your elf and human. So whatever I've made comments for those two, I would use for that. Your halflings and gnomes, they're both going to be extremely good for spell casting, especially halflings as this lucky one. Basically, when you start rolling some high dice rolls or using spells that attack, let's say, 5, 6, 7 times with a specific spell, this is very good at, so you don't want to roll ones. Again, gnomes make also very good spellcasters, as spellcasters also don't need a ton of movement speed since they want to stay in the back. Dragonborns probably look the coolest, but they honestly give probably the least amount of stuff. I would probably pick them with something that gives some type of martial proficiency, like Barbarian again, or Fighter, as similar to Tieflings, they don't get any weapon training. And finally, the Half-Orc is great as a front liner, especially with the Savage Attacks, extra crit, and the Relentless Endurance. So I would highly recommend being a Barbarian, a Fighter, a Paladin, or a Monk. These fantastic at just being your front liners, dealing a lot of damage and taking a lot of damage and coming back to life.